Chapter 1. His name is Rael, and he has been doing this for 8 years, and he has never once failed an assignment. That is not something he says out loud. Spies do not say things like that out loud, because saying it would be the kind of pride that makes you careless, and careless is the one thing you cannot afford to be in his line of work. But it is true, and he knows it is true, and it is the reason his handler gives him the difficult ones. The ones where charm is not sufficient, and intelligence alone is not enough. The ones that require both, combined with the specific patience of someone who can spend weeks building something that will be destroyed in a single moment without letting the building matter to him. He does not let things matter to him. That is the other truth about Rael that he does not say out loud. He has constructed his professional life around it, around the specific discipline of caring about outcomes rather than people, around understanding people completely for the purpose of using that understanding and then setting it aside when the assignment is done. He is very good at it. The assignment is this. There is a woman. Her name is Vera. She is the senior archivist of the Northern Territories, which sounds like a modest position until you understand what it means. The archives she manages contain 40 years of correspondence between the Northern Kingdom and its allies, trade agreements, military intelligence, diplomatic secrets, the kind of information that changes the shape of power when it moves from one set of hands to another. Someone on the other side wants access to those archives, not the physical documents themselves. Access. They want someone inside the archive, trusted by the archivist, able to move through the collections freely and report back on what is there and what can be used. Rael's handler explains it simply. The archivist is careful and smart and does not trust easily. A direct approach will not work. What is needed is time and the right kind of attention. The right kind of man presenting himself in the right way and making himself necessary to her life before anyone understands what is happening. Rael listens to all of this and asks the questions he always asks. What does she value? What does she fear? What are the specific vulnerabilities that make her accessible? His handler answers all of these questions because his handler is also very good at their job and has done the research. Vera is private. She values her work above most things. She's not interested in flattery or obvious charm. She responds to competence and to being taken seriously. Rael nods. He takes the file. He reads everything in it twice on the train north. He has done this before. He knows how it goes. He will go in, he will build the access, he will report what is needed, and he will leave, clean, efficient, without attachment. He has done it before. He will do it again. Chapter 2. The archive is in a building that has been a library for 200 years and smells like it. Old paper and leather, and the specific atmosphere of a place that takes the preservation of things seriously. Rael walks in on a Tuesday morning with a letter of introduction from an academic institution that is real and will confirm everything the letter says, and has no idea it is being used for this purpose. He introduces himself as a researcher. He has a genuine research project to work on while he is here because the cover has to be real enough to sustain scrutiny, and a cover that is entirely fabricated will not last. He has spent 3 weeks actually doing the research so that when he talks about it, the knowledge is real. This is the part of his work that most people would not expect, the thoroughness of it, the genuine effort put into the thing that is being used as a lie. He asks to speak with the senior archivist. He is told she is with someone and will be available in 20 minutes. He waits in the reading room, and he uses the 20 minutes to observe the archive and the people in it and the way the space works. He is always observing. It is the most ingrained habit he has. She comes to find him herself. This is the first thing that is not what he expected. Most senior archivists in his experience send a junior staff member to deal with a new researcher. She comes herself, moving through the reading room with the specific efficiency of someone who knows exactly where they are going and is not wasting motion getting there. She is not what the file described, or she is exactly what the file described and the description was insufficient. The file said private and careful and competent. It did not say the way she looks at a room when she enters it, like she is reading it. It did not say the quality of stillness she has, the kind that comes from someone who is comfortable in their own presence and does not need to fill space with activity to feel settled. It did not say the specific expression on her face when she looks at him for the first time, which is not suspicious and not welcoming, but something more neutral and more interesting than either. She is assessing him, he is assessing her. They are both professionals. He gives her the letter of introduction and the details of his research project. She reads the letter carefully, not skimming, actually reading. He watches her read it and adjusts several things he had planned to say based on what her reading tells him about her. She asks him 3 questions about his research. specific questions, the kind that would immediately expose someone whose knowledge was surface level. He answers all three correctly, and completely because his knowledge is not surface level. He prepared. Something in her expression changes slightly when he answers the third question, not dramatically, just slightly. A small adjustment that means she has filed him under a different category than where she started. She gives him access to the reading room and assigns him a research assistant, and tells him that she is available to answer questions about the collection on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. He thanks her and she leaves, and he sits in the reading room with his genuine research materials, and he thinks about the file and about what it did not tell him, and about the three questions and the specific way she read the letter, and what all of it adds up to. It adds up to someone who is going to be harder to fool than his handler suggested. It also adds up to someone who is far more interesting than his handler suggested. He files that second observation away immediately. It is not relevant. He does not let things be relevant that are not relevant to the assignment. He opens his research materials and gets to work. Chapter 3. He spends the first 2 weeks doing exactly what he said he would do. Research. He is in the reading room every morning when it opens, and he stays until early afternoon, and he works through the historical documents he needs with the methodical attention of someone who takes their work seriously, which he does. That is the strange thing about Rael's approach to deception. The parts that are real are always genuinely real. He does not fake being interested in the research. He is interested in the research. He does not perform being thorough. He is thorough. The lie is not in the behavior. The lie is in the reason for it. On the first Tuesday afternoon, he goes to ask Vera a question about the collection. The question is genuine. He found a gap in the cataloging of a set of mid-period correspondence, and he wants to understand why the gap exists and what might have been in that section before the cataloging was revised. She is in her office, which is at the back of the archive behind a door that is always open during working hours. She looks up when he appears in the doorway and waves him in without stopping what she is writing, which he takes as a sign that she is busy but not unwelcoming. He asks the question. It is a genuinely good question because he spent the morning making sure it was. She stops writing and looks at him, and then looks at the ceiling for a moment, the way people look at the ceiling when they are accessing something they know well, and then she tells him about the gap. The cataloging was revised in the third reorganization because the previous system had conflated two separate correspondence streams, and the gap represents the material that was moved to a different section rather than lost. She can show him where. She gets up and leads him through the archive to a section he had not been authorized to access yet. She does not ask for permission to take him there. She simply takes him there because she has decided the question merits the answer, and the answer requires the access. He notes this. She makes decisions based on what she thinks is correct rather than on procedure. That is useful information. They spend 40 minutes in the section. She shows him where the moved material is and explains the logic of the reorganization and answers 3 further questions that come out of the first one. He asks all 3 questions because they are genuine questions, and also because each answer tells him something about the archive and about her. She is, he discovers, extraordinarily good at her job, not in the way of someone who has mastered a set of procedures, in the way of someone who understands the thing they are managing so completely that they can navigate it without procedures. She knows where everything is and why it is there and what it connects to and what it means in context. The archive is not just a collection to her. It is a system she understands the way a person understands their own house. He is supposed to be building access. He is building access. But somewhere in the 40 minutes, he also becomes genuinely interested in what she is telling him about the archive, independent of the assignment, and he notices this happening and files it carefully away. When they are done, she goes back to her office, and he goes back to the reading room, and he sits with his materials, and he thinks about the afternoon. He is on schedule. The first stage is going correctly. She does not trust him yet, but she has categorized him as a serious researcher whose questions are worth answering, and that is the necessary foundation. In another 2 weeks, he will move to the next stage. He tells himself this, and he believes it, and he opens his materials and gets back to work. He does not think about the 40 minutes again. He is very disciplined about not thinking about things that are not useful. He thinks about the 40 minutes again that evening. Chapter 4. The month passes and he is doing everything correctly, and something is going wrong. Not wrong in the sense of the assignment failing. The assignment is proceeding exactly as planned. He has established himself as a regular presence in the archive. He he has built a genuine rapport with the research assistant assigned to him. He has had 6 Tuesday and Thursday conversations with Vera, each one moving the relationship forward in the careful way that his training has taught him to manage these things. She is not suspicious of him. She's beginning to find him reliable. That is the correct progression. What is going wrong is that he is not managing the assignment the way he has always managed assignments. The management of an assignment like this one requires a specific kind of internal organization. You build a version of yourself that is appropriate for the target. You inhabit that version while you are with them. You step out of it when you are not. The version of yourself you are building is a performance, and like all performances, it requires you to know where the stage is and where you are when you are not on it. Rael has always been very clear about where the stage is. He has always been able to step off it cleanly and return to himself and notice the difference between the two. He is having trouble noticing the difference. This is because the version of himself he has built for this assignment is, in most respects, himself. He is interested in the research because he is genuinely interested in it. He is thoughtful in their conversations because he is genuinely thoughtful. He listens to what she says about the archive with the complete attention his training has taught him to deploy as a technique, and also because he finds what she says genuinely interesting. He asks good questions because his questions are real questions. The performance is real. That is the problem. He built a version of himself that was close enough to the actual version that he cannot find the seam. He notices this on a Thursday afternoon when she is explaining something about the preservation methodology for a set of particularly fragile documents. She is explaining it because he asked a question that required the explanation, and she is careful and precise, and she uses her hands slightly when she is explaining something she cares about, which he has noticed she does not always do. He is listening, and he is genuinely listening, and somewhere in the middle of the explanation, he realizes that he is not thinking about the assignment at all. He is just listening because he wants to hear what she says next. He recalibrates. He reminds himself of what he is doing here and what the conversation is for and what comes after this stage. He does it efficiently. He has been recalibrating throughout this assignment more than he has had to recalibrate on any previous one, which is itself a data point he is choosing not to analyze in full. He knows what it means. He is not naive about what it means. He is simply choosing, for the time being, not to follow that particular line of analysis to its conclusion. There is still an assignment to complete. He is going to complete it. Chapter 5. I have been the senior archivist for 6 years, and in that time I have learned to read researchers the way I read documents, carefully and completely, and with specific attention to what is not on the surface. Most researchers who come through the archive fall into predictable categories: the ones who are excited about their subject and want to talk about it constantly, the ones who are intimidated by the collection and try to hide it, the ones who are not actually interested in the research and are here for some other reason that usually becomes clear within the first week, the ones who are serious and methodical and will be here for months and will probably produce something genuinely good. Rael did not fall into any of these categories, not cleanly. He was clearly serious and methodical. His questions were good. His knowledge was real. He did not try to talk to me more than was necessary to do his work, which I appreciate more than most researchers understand. He did not perform interest in the archive. He was just interested, which is a different thing and more interesting to be around. But there was something else, something I noticed in the first week and filed away and have been watching since. He was careful, not in the way that careful people usually are, not socially careful or professionally careful, something more fundamental than that. The kind of careful that comes from someone who has spent a long time making sure that what they show is exactly what they intend to show and nothing more. I know what that looks like because I do it myself. I learned to do it after my 2nd year in this job, when I understood that the archive made me a target for people who wanted access to what I managed, and that being legible was a vulnerability. When I recognize something in someone, it is not always reassuring. Sometimes recognizing something means understanding a risk. I kept him at the correct distance. I answered his questions thoroughly because his questions were good and deserved thorough answers. I did not invite more conversation than was warranted by the work. I watched him the way I watch everything in the archive, carefully and without making the watching obvious. And I noticed things, the way he listened, not the performed listening of someone being polite, but the actual kind, where you can see the information arriving and being processed. The way he asked follow-up questions that demonstrated he had genuinely absorbed what came before. The way he was the same person in every conversation, which is rarer than it sounds. Most people are slightly different depending on who they are talking to and in what context. He was consistent. That is either a sign of someone very integrated or someone very disciplined. I was not sure which. I am still not sure. What I am sure of is that somewhere in the second month I stopped watching him purely as a potential risk and started watching him because I found him interesting. And I noticed myself doing that, and I thought about it, and I decided that it was fine as long as I remained careful. I remain careful. I am always careful. But I also find myself looking forward to Tuesday and Thursday afternoons in a way that I did not look forward to them before he arrived. I think about that sometimes. I do not think about it too much. Chapter 6. At the end of the second month, his handler contacts him for an update. He gives the update honestly because his handler has known him for 8 years and will notice if anything is being managed, and the update is genuinely positive from the assignment perspective. He has built the foundation. He has established trust. He is positioned to move to the next stage, which involves accessing the restricted sections of the archive under the cover of a research need that he will manufacture carefully. His handler is satisfied. His handler asks if there are complications. He says there are no complications. This is technically true. There are no complications with the assignment. The assignment is on track. He does not mention the thing that is not a complication with the assignment, but is a complication with him. He has been supposed to move to the next stage for 2 weeks. He has not moved to the next stage. He tells himself this is because the timing is not right, and because the foundation needs more time to be solid, and because he is being careful. All of these things are true. None of them are the actual reason. The actual reason is that moving to the next stage requires manufacturing a research need, which requires lying to her, not the kind of lying he has been doing, which is lying by omission, by being a real version of himself in a false context. This would be a specific lie, a thing that is not true presented as true for the purpose of getting something from her. He has done this before. On every assignment, he has done this before. It is the most basic element of this kind of work. He sits at his desk in his rented room and thinks about doing it, and he cannot make himself start. This is new. In 8 years of doing this work, he has never had this problem. He has had moments of discomfort. He has had assignments that cost him more than others. He has had people he genuinely liked and had to use anyway. All of that he has managed. He has always been able to separate what he felt from what he needed to do. He cannot separate it this time. He sits with that for a long time. He is honest with himself in a way he is not always honest with himself, which is that this is not about timing or about the foundation needing more work. This is about not wanting to lie to her specifically. This is about having spent 2 months in her archive, listening to her explain things she cares about, and finding that he has developed a specific and inconvenient reluctance to deceive her that is not compatible with what he is here to do. He should report this. A compromised operative is a liability, and he knows that. He should contact his handler and say that there is a complication after all, and that a different approach or a different operative may be necessary. He does not contact his handler. Instead, he sits with the problem for 3 days and does not move to the next stage and goes to the archive and does his actual research and has 2 genuine conversations with Vera about things that have nothing to do with restricted sections, and he thinks about what he is going to do. He knows what he should do. He is not going to do what he should do. He does not yet know what he is going to do instead. Chapter 7. It is a Thursday afternoon, and they are in the restricted section that she has been gradually giving him access to over the past month, working through a set of historical documents that are genuinely relevant to his research, and she says something that stops him completely. She is explaining the provenance of a particular set of documents, the way she always explains things, carefully and with full context, and with the specific pleasure of someone sharing something they know well, and in the middle of the explanation she says something about the collection. She says that she has been managing this archive for 6 years, and that there are parts of it she is still finding. That every few months something in a collection she thought she understood completely reveals itself to be connected to something else in a way she had not seen, and that this, the ongoing discovery of connections she had not known were there, is why she has never wanted to do anything else. He listens to this, and something happens that he does not know how to manage. He thinks about what she has just said, not about what it tells him about the archive or about her in the context of the assignment. He thinks about it as itself, about what it means to have a thing that you have given yourself to completely, and that continues to give back, about what it means to be 6 years into something and still finding it, about what it would feel like to have that. He has not had that. He has had his work, which he has been good at and which has been enough. He has not had anything that he found for its own sake, that he would do regardless of whether it was useful. He has always been useful. He has not always been present. She's still talking. He is still listening. He is also, somewhere underneath the listening, having a very quiet and very significant realization about himself that he is not ready to have in a restricted section of a northern archive on a Thursday afternoon. After she is done, he asks her something that is not about the archive. He asks her how she decided, how she knew that this was what she wanted to do and not something else. She looks at him for a moment, not surprised exactly, more like she is deciding how to answer a question that is not what she expected. She says she did not decide exactly. She says she came here for what she thought was a temporary position, and the archive was so much larger than she had understood, and there was so much in it, and she simply did not leave. She says she is not sure that is a decision so much as an accumulation of mornings, where leaving seemed like less of an idea than staying. He thinks about that for the rest of the day. He thinks about accumulation. He thinks about the specific weight of having spent 8 years becoming very good at a thing he chose for reasons he is no longer sure of. He thinks about her in the restricted section, talking about finding connections she had not known were there. He thinks about the assignment and what it requires, and who he has been for 8 years, and who he is in this archive on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. He thinks about these things, and he understands that he has arrived at a point where he has to make a decision, not the decision about the assignment, a larger decision, the kind that comes before all the smaller ones. Chapter 8. He goes to the archive on a Tuesday morning, and he does his work, and he waits until the afternoon when it is their usual time, and he asks if he can speak to her about something that is not about the research. She looks at him with that particular expression she has, the one that is assessing something without showing that it is assessing, and she says yes. He tells her. Not quickly, not efficiently. He has done this before, telling people difficult things, and he has always done it efficiently because efficiency minimizes the time that both parties have to manage the difficulty. This time he does not do it efficiently. He does it carefully. He gives her everything in the order that makes it most understandable, starting from the beginning. He tells her who he is, not the research cover, the actual version. He tells her about the 8 years and the kind of work and the specific nature of the assignment he was given. He tells her what he was sent here to do and what that would have required of him. He tells her that he got 2 months in and could not do it. He tells her that he did not contact his handler and report the complication because he did not want someone else to come and do what he had not been able to make himself do. That stopping his own deception was not enough. He needed to stop all of it. He tells her that the archive is genuinely at risk, that the people who sent him will send someone else when he fails to report further progress, that she needs to know this in order to protect the collection, and that protecting the collection is the reason he is telling her, and also not the only reason he is telling her. He tells her that the conversations they have had on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons have been the most real conversations he has had in 8 years, and that he knows that does not make anything he did acceptable, and that he is not saying it to ask for anything. He says all of this in her office with the door that is always open during working hours, and the afternoon light coming through the window that looks out on the archive reading room. Then he stops talking and he waits. She is very still. She has been very still since approximately the 3rd sentence. She is looking at him with an expression he has not seen on her before, which is significant because he has been watching her face carefully for 2 months and thought he had cataloged all her expressions. This one is new. It is too large to be a single thing. It is several things happening in sequence too fast to separate. He waits. He is prepared for her to ask him to leave and never return. He is prepared for anger. He is prepared for the specific controlled fury of someone who has been deceived by someone they were beginning to trust. He has seen that before, and he deserves it. What she does is ask him a question. She asks him how long he had been planning to tell her. He is honest. He tells her he has been supposed to move to the next stage of the assignment for 3 weeks and could not make himself do it, and that the inability to do it was when he knew he was going to tell her, though he did not know when. She nods very slowly. She looks at her desk for a moment, then she looks at him and she says something he does not expect. She says that she knew something was not right, not what, not specifically, but something, and that she had decided to keep watching and let whatever it was become clear, because in her experience trying to force clarity on something that was not ready usually made it less clear rather than more. She says that she has been watching him for 2 months, and that the thing she could not reconcile was that the version of him she could not fully read was also the most genuinely present person who has been in this archive in 6 years. She says she needs time to think. He says he understands completely. He leaves the archive. He goes back to his rented room. He sits by the window and he waits, and he does not know what he is waiting for except that whatever it is the thing that comes after the hardest thing he has ever done in 8 years of doing difficult things. Chapter 9. I spend 3 days thinking. This is not unusual for me. I am a person who thinks before I decide, and I take the time that thinking requires. Most people in my life have found this frustrating at some point. I have learned to accept that it is simply how I work, and that the decisions I make at the end of the thinking are better for having had the time. What I am thinking about is not simple. He lied to me, that is the foundation of it. He came into this archive under false pretenses with a specific and damaging purpose, and he spent 2 months building access to me and to the collection that he was supposed to use for something that would have harmed the archive and harmed me. That is what happened. I do not minimize it. I do not find ways to make it less than it is. And then he told me before he used any of it. He told me, and in telling me, he destroyed the assignment and created significant professional consequences for himself, and gave me everything I needed to protect the archive from whatever comes next. He did not have to do any of that. He could have continued. He could have manufactured the research need and gained the access and reported back and been gone before I understood what had happened. He had the skill and the training and the 8 years of practice at exactly this kind of thing. He did not continue. He could not make himself continue. And when he could not make himself continue, he came and told me. I think about the conversations, about Tuesday and Thursday afternoons for 2 months. I have been doing this job for 6 years, and I am good at reading people, and I think about whether any of it was performed, whether the listening was a technique and the questions were calculated and the presence was constructed. Some of it was, I am not naive about that. He came in with an agenda, and everything in the beginning was in service of that agenda. But I have been watching him carefully, and there is a point, I think somewhere in the second month, where the performance and the reality stopped being distinguishable, where he was not performing being interested. He was interested, where he was not performing the conversations. He was having them. I know what that looks like, because I have spent 6 years watching people perform interest in the archive, and knowing the difference between performance and the real thing. The last month was real. I also think about the archive, about what he told me regarding the people who sent him and what they will do when he fails to report progress. I think about the security of the collection and what needs to happen now to protect it. I think about this practically and systematically because the archive is my responsibility and protecting it is not separate from everything else I am thinking about. It is part of the same thing. On the 3rd day, I contact him. I tell him I have things to discuss and that he should come to the archive the following morning. He comes. I tell him first about the archive, about what I am going to do to address the security risk he has described, who I am going to contact, and what protections I am going to put in place. I tell him this clearly and specifically because it matters and because I want him to know it is handled. He listens to all of it with the attention he gives everything, and then he says something that I have been waiting to hear without knowing I was waiting. He says that he can help. He knows the people who sent him, and he knows how they work, and he knows what kind of access they were looking for, and that information could be useful in building the right kind of protection. He says he understands if I do not want his help. He says it is available if I do. I tell him I want his help. And then I tell him the other thing, the thing that is not about the archive. I tell him that I have been watching him for 2 months, and that I know the difference between performance and presence, and that the last month was not performance. I tell him that I am not interested in pretending that the conversations did not happen, or that I did not find them valuable because I would be lying, and I do not lie as a professional practice or as a personal one. I tell him that I need him to understand something clearly before we go further. I tell him that I am not easy to trust, and that I know that about myself, and that whatever comes next is going to require him to be more honest with me than he has probably been with anyone in 8 years, and that if he is not prepared to do that, then this conversation ends here, and what we build together is professional and nothing more. He looks at me. His amber eyes are doing something they have not done in any of the 2 months I have been watching them, something that is not managed or careful or constructed. He says he is prepared for that. He says it is the easiest thing he has been asked to do in 8 years because honesty with her specifically is the only thing that has felt natural since the second week. I look at him for a long moment. Then I stand up and I go to the window and I look at the archive reading room below and I think about accumulation, about mornings where leaving seems like less of an idea than staying. I decide to stay. Chapter 10. It is not simple after that. I did not expect it to be simple, and it is not. He helps me secure the archive. The knowledge he brings is specific and genuinely useful. He knows how intelligence operations like the one he was part of work and what they look for and where the vulnerabilities are. He knows it from the inside in a way that no external security consultant could know it. We spend 3 weeks working through the archive systems together and putting in place protections that I would not have known to put in place without him. During those 3 weeks, we worked together every day, and it is the most productive and also the most complicated 3 weeks I have had in 6 years. Complicated because we are building trust at the same time as we are building security systems, and the two processes are not entirely separate. Every conversation is doing two things at once. Every time he is honest about something he was not honest about before, it is a small addition to something we are constructing that has no blueprint. He tells me things, not all at once, in the way that the honest version of gradual disclosure works, which is different from the strategic version. He tells me about the 8 years and specific things from them that are relevant to understanding who he is now. He tells me about the choices he made and the ones he regrets and the ones he still is not sure about. He does not tell me everything. There are things that belong to other people, and he does not tell me those. But he tells me the things that are his to tell, and he tells them honestly, and I can tell the difference between those two kinds of telling now. I tell him things too, about the archive and why it matters to me, about the 6 years and what they have cost and what they have given, about being careful and what that means and why I developed it and what it has protected me from and what it has also kept me from. I am not used to saying these things out loud. I find that saying them to him is easier than saying them would usually be, which I think about and decide means something without being ready to say what. He stays, his research cover gives him a reason to be here for another 3 months, and then he finds another reason, and then he finds a legitimate piece of work that is not a cover at all and that he is genuinely interested in. He moves out of the rented room and into a place that is more permanent, not because anything has been decided or declared, because he is here and staying seems like more of an idea than leaving. The Tuesday and Thursday afternoons continue, different now, not the careful managed conversations of before, something looser, something that does not require managing. One afternoon he is helping me with a complicated cataloging problem. We have been at it for 2 hours and we are close to a solution, and I say something that makes him laugh. A real laugh, not the controlled version of amusement he has, the real one. I have heard it before, not often, and every time it is slightly surprising and very worth it. He looks at me after the laugh and he says something. He says that the accumulation of mornings where leaving seemed like less of an idea than staying. He says that he understands now what I meant. I look at him, tan skin and brown hair and amber eyes that are not managed or careful or constructed, just present, just here, in my archive on a Tuesday afternoon, with a cataloging problem between us and the afternoon light coming through the window. I think about 8 years of a man being very good at being useful and not present. I think about 2 months of watching someone I did not fully trust and finding them the most present person in the room. I think about 3 weeks of building something with no blueprint and how it has started to look like something I recognize. I reach across the cataloging problem and I put my hand on his. He holds it. The archive is very quiet around us. The afternoon light is very good. We have a cataloging problem to solve, and after that another one, and after that probably another one, because the archive is always giving us new problems to work on together, and I have stopped finding that exhausting and started finding it exactly right. Some things are worth the complication of getting to them. This is one of those things. Epilogue. 6 months after he told me the truth, we are in the restricted section on a Thursday afternoon, and he finds something I did not know was there. This is not unusual now. He has been working in the archive long enough and carefully enough that he finds things. Not often. The archive is well managed and I know it well. But occasionally, in the way that the archive occasionally does with me, it shows him something. A connection he was not looking for. A document in a section that turns out to be the missing piece of something he has been thinking about for weeks. When he finds things, he brings them to me. Not because he has to, because he wants to show me, because the finding is better when it is shared. I understand this completely. It is exactly how I feel about the archive. It is one of the first things I understood about him that had nothing to do with whether to trust him, that he had found, in this archive on a temporary cover that stopped being a cover, something that gave back, something that he would do regardless of whether it was useful, something that was his. He brings me the document and shows me what he found, and I look at it, and I see what he sees, and I say something about it, and he says something back, and we are in the restricted section on a Thursday afternoon, having the kind of conversation that I look forward to in the way I look forward to very few things. There are still complicated things. There are things about his previous work that occasionally surface in ways that require navigating. There are people from before who are not gone and who present occasional complications. There is the ongoing work of building trust that was started in unusual circumstances, and that requires more care because of that. None of it is simple. I have never expected simple. I am an archivist. I understand that the things worth managing are complicated and that the management is part of the value. He is worth managing. More than that, he's worth the specific and ongoing work of being known by someone you did not expect to be known by, of being seen by someone who came in with an agenda and could not go through with it because the seeing got in the way, of being, for the first time in 6 years of careful watchfulness, not entirely careful. He is at the desk across from mine. He is writing something, not a cover, an actual piece of work that he is actually interested in and that he will finish, and that will be genuinely good. He does not look up, but I can tell from the angle of his head that he knows I am looking. He always knows. After a moment he looks up, amber eyes, the not managed version, the version I get now, which is different from the version I got in the first 2 months in ways I have cataloged carefully because it is my nature to catalog things. I go back to my work. He goes back to his. The archive is around us, 6 years of my life and now part of his, full of things neither of us has found yet, full of connections we have not seen and documents that are waiting to show themselves in Thursday afternoons that are always going to be ours. I stopped waiting for simple a long time ago. This is better than simple. This is exactly right.